The desert wind howled through the broken walls of the forward operating base. Inside the command room, dust swirled in the pale glow of a flickering map screen. Tension hung like wire. Captain Hayes' voice cut through the noise. "Any combat pilots here?" No one answered. Then, from the back of the room, a chair scraped the floor. Captain Elena Torres, the woman everyone called just maintenance, rose to her feet. Dirt-streaked fatigues, calm eyes, unshaken voice. "I can fly," she said. The room froze. Disbelief met defiance, and the night began to change. If you love true war stories, hit that red subscribe button now, and tell me where you're watching from. Let's begin. The command room buzzed with unease. Dust hung in the air like static. The sound of distant gunfire rolled over the mountains, muffled, rhythmic, too close for comfort. Captain Hayes stood over the map table, his voice steady but tight. "Without air support, we're finished." No one argued. His SEAL team had just limped back from a botched raid. 2 wounded, 1 missing, every man running on fumes. The base's outer posts had gone silent 20 minutes ago. The enemy was regrouping in the dark. And then there was her. Captain Elena Torres, the quiet woman they'd barely noticed for a year, stood near the back wall. Dust streaked across her fatigues, hair tied back under a faded Air Force cap. She was maintenance crew, the one who fixed radios, patched up engines, and kept coffee warm when the nights got long. Now she had everyone's attention. "I can fly," she said again, calmer this time. The silence cut deep. Hayes looked up from the map, eyes narrowing. "You're saying you can take that A-10 on the strip and actually get it off the ground?" Elena nodded. "Yes, sir." Senior Chief Dalton, broad-shouldered and scarred from 20 years of sand and smoke, gave a rough laugh. "Ma'am, no disrespect, but that's like saying you can ride a dragon. That bird hasn't flown in months." Elena stepped forward. "I was an A-10 pilot before reassignment. 2 tours in Afghanistan, 62 CAS missions." The words hit like rounds on steel. Even Dalton's smirk faded. Everyone in that room knew the name of the Hog, the GAU-8 Avenger cannon, the thunder that saved soldiers when everything else failed. Hayes leaned in, his tone testing. "You're telling me that grounded Warthog outside, the one no one's touched since spring, you can make her fly?" "I do, and make her sing," Elena said quietly. A low whistle slipped from Lieutenant Reeves, the youngest of the team, his left arm still bandaged. "You serious?" Elena met his eyes. "Dead serious." A hum of tension filled the air again. The captain straightened. "Chief," he said, turning toward Dalton, "get the hangar lights on. If she's lying, we'll know fast." Dalton hesitated, but Hayes' tone left no room for argument. "Move." The chief grabbed his radio, barking orders to the ground crew. Outside, the base floodlights began flickering to life, cutting through the valley night. Elena pulled a folded glove from her pocket, the same glove she'd worn the day her wingman went down near Jalalabad. She clenched it once, then followed Hayes out into the open air. The night was sharp, clear, and endless. Stars glimmered over the dark ridges of Nuristan. Ahead of them, the forgotten A-10 Thunderbolt sat beneath a sheet of dust and silence. The SEALs followed at a distance, rifles slung, eyes tracking the horizon. Dalton shook his head. "I still don't believe this." Reeves muttered, "Hope you're wrong." Elena stopped at the foot of the plane's ladder. Her palm rested on the cold metal, her reflection flickering in the canopy glass. For a second, she closed her eyes. Not from fear, but memory. She could still hear radio chatter from years ago. "Valkyrie, if you don't get here in 2 minutes, they're gone." Then she opened them. "I need power, fuel, and clearance," she said. Hayes crossed his arms. "You've got 10 minutes. Her response was simple. "I'll only need 5. The captain gave a short nod. "Then prove it." The SEALs stepped back, forming a half circle around the bird. The engines loomed silent behind her. Relics of battles past. She began to move, quick and precise, her hands checking panels, tracing wires, switching breakers with mechanical rhythm. Oh, most of them, it looked like madness. To her it was coming home. The tarmac stretched like a strip of cold steel beneath the floodlights. The air was sharp, carrying the faint scent of fuel and dust. Captain Elena Torres climbed the ladder to the cockpit of the A-10 Thunderbolt II, her hands steady, her face set with a focus the SEALs had never seen. Below, Captain Hayes stood with arms crossed, eyes narrowed, the wind tugging at his uniform. Senior Chief Dalton muttered under his breath, This is either going to be a miracle or a memorial. Elena settled into the seat, the cockpit wrapping around her like an old memory. Her gloves brushed the worn switches, fingertips tracing over faded stencils and scratched metal. Everything felt heavier than she remembered, the kind of weight that only history gives. "Ground crew, this is Valkyrie," she said into the comm mic. "We're going to bring this bird back from the dead." The radio cracked with static before a young voice answered. "Copy that, ma'am. Crewman Ortiz here, standing by." Elena smiled faintly. "Good. I'll need power to the primary bus and fuel from line 2. Ortiz's voice came through again. "On it." Outside, the SEALs and maintenance crew watched in silence as generators roared to life. Cables snaked across the runway, connecting to the A-10's underside. The aircraft sat in shadows one moment, and in the next, came alive with the soft hum of electricity. Inside the cockpit, lights flickered across the console. Elena's reflection shimmered faintly on the HUD as the systems warmed. She began the checklist, voice low, methodical. Battery on, fuel pumps 1 and 2 active, avionics power, nominal. The first engine coughed like an old beast waking from a long sleep. A puff of dust shot from the exhaust, followed by a weak whine that grew into a steady roar. The SEALs stepped back, shielding their faces from the blast. "Engine 1 is live," Elena called. "Copy," Ortiz replied, his voice louder now over the wind. She switched to the second engine. It resisted, a groaning protest echoing through the air. She tapped the panel with her knuckle. "Come on, girl, don't die on me now." Another sputter, then a deep rolling growl as the second turbine spun up. Both engines steadied into rhythm, their combined rumble filling the valley. From the ground, Dalton exhaled slowly. "Well, I'll be damned." Hayes didn't look away. "Told you, if she can talk, she can fly." Inside the cockpit, Elena's face softened as every gauge flickered green. She adjusted her headset and pushed the throttle slightly forward. The A-10 rolled a few feet, metal creaking under its own weight. "Valkyrie to ground," she said over the radio, her tone steady as a blade. "Engines hot, systems green, preparing for taxi." The SEAL nearest Hayes stared, eyes wide. "She wasn't bluffing, sir." Hayes gave a single nod. "She's earned her wings back." The night air trembled as the Hog's engines hit full idle. Dust whipped across the base. Soldiers came out from tents and bunkers drawn by the sound. For years, that plane had been forgotten, a relic parked in the corner of the airstrip, silent witness to every failure and fear that haunted the men stationed there. Now, under one pilot's command, it lived again. Elena's breathing steadied. The vibrations through the seat felt like a heartbeat. Steady, alive, loyal. She gripped the control stick and closed her eyes for half a second. "This one's for every call we couldn't answer," she whispered. Then she opened them, and the cockpit lights reflected off her visor like the dawn breaking through smoke.
The night cracked open with the roar of the engines. The A-10 Thunderbolt rolled forward, its nose lifting slightly as the tires bit into the runway. Elena's hand rested on the throttle, knuckles white under her glove. She had done this 1,000 times before. But never like this, never with the weight of an entire base depending on her. "Valkyrie to ground," she radioed, voice steady. "Taxi complete, requesting clearance for immediate takeoff." Captain Hayes' voice came through, rough with disbelief that had finally turned into faith. "Valkyrie, runway is yours. Bring the thunder." The turbines screamed. The Hog surged forward, trailing twin vortices of dust. Then, with a metallic shriek, it lifted free of the earth, wings cutting through the black Afghan sky like a blade through silk. The moment she broke altitude, Elena's heartbeat slowed. The valley unfolded beneath her, ridgelines carved by moonlight, flashes of distant tracer fire marking the kill zone below. The SEAL team was trapped on a rocky outcrop halfway down the eastern slope. Enemy fighters were closing in fast. "Ground, this is Valkyrie. Visual on your position. Engaging." Dalton's voice cut through the static. "God, I can't believe this is happening." Inside the cockpit, Elena's movements were smooth, surgical. Her thumb hovered over the master arm switch. The familiar hum of the GAU-8 Avenger cannon filled the cabin. The sound of something ancient, powerful and righteous. She lined up the first target. An enemy truck convoy advancing through the dry riverbed. The targeting crosshair steadied. She breathed once, shallow and even. Guns hot. The A-10 screamed downward. A line of light erupted from beneath her. a storm of tungsten shells tearing through the darkness. The ground below exploded in fire and dust. From the ridge the seals stared, mouths open. "Holy hell," Reeves whispered.
Hayes' voice crackled through the radio, sharp and commanding. "Keep those bastards off our flank, Valkyrie." "Copy that," she said, rolling hard to the left. The hog banked, its wings flashing silver under the moonlight as she came around for another pass. The enemy regrouped, muzzle flashes stitched through the dark like lightning. Elena felt rounds ping against the armor plating. Her jaw clenched, but her tone stayed calm. "I'm taking fire, adjusting vector." She dropped low, the mountains whipping past so close she could see shadows of trees rushing beneath her wings. "Let's dance," she murmured. She pulled the stick, the hog climbing sharply, engines howling, the sky filled with the steady rhythm of the GAU-8. The enemy line broke apart, scattering under the onslaught. "Valkyrie, you're clear," Hayes said. "We're moving to extraction." "Copy. I'll cover your 6. Elena circled back, tracking the convoy of SEAL vehicles speeding across the dry flats below. She laid down one last strafing run. Precise, perfect. The mountain echoed with the deep thrum of power, a sound that felt less like machinery and more like vengeance. Then silence. The only thing left was the hum of turbines and the faint chatter of retreating gunfire. "Valkyrie," Hayes said after a long pause, "we owe you our lives." Elena looked out across the valley, the horizon bleeding from black into deep indigo. "You don't owe me anything," she replied softly. "We're even." She banked west, engines cutting low, the hog gliding like a ghost between mountain spines. The radio crackled one last time with Reeves's voice, strained but awed. "Ma'am, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Elena smiled faintly behind the visor. "Let's just say, I missed flying." The aircraft disappeared into the dark, leaving behind only echoes, and men who would never again doubt the name Valkyrie.
The dawn over Nuristan came slow, quiet, and golden, light spilling across the shattered valley like a benediction. The fight was over. Smoke curled from the distant ridge where the last enemy trucks burned, their wreckage glowing faintly in the morning light. Captain Elena Torres guided the A-10 Thunderbolt back toward the base, her fuel low but her heartbeat steady. The hog flew as if alive again, its wings scarred, its engines singing a rough, victorious tune. "Ground, this is Valkyrie," she radioed, voice calm. "Returning home." Captain Hayes' reply came soft and low. "Copy that, Valkyrie. You've got a clear runway." The airstrip shimmered in the sunlight, dust swirling across its length as the hog descended. The landing gear dropped with a metallic click. Elena's gloved hands adjusted the throttle, her focus absolute. Wheels met earth. A solid, perfect touchdown. The engines howled once, then began to wind down, the plane rolling to a smooth stop at the far end of the strip. When she opened the canopy, the smell of hot metal and desert air rushed in. She pulled off her helmet, her hair clinging to her sweat-damp forehead, face streaked with soot, but her eyes clear and alive. Below, the SEAL team was already waiting. They looked smaller now, not because of distance, but because the myth they'd carried about her had shattered. Elena climbed down the ladder, boots hitting the tarmac. The silence that followed wasn't uncertainty anymore. It was awe. Captain Hayes stepped forward. His face was unreadable, rough, dusted with grit, but his eyes held something new. He stopped a foot from her and simply raised his hand in a crisp salute. Elena returned it, brief, exact, perfect. Behind him, Lieutenant Reeves and Senior Chief Dalton followed suit.
One by one, the rest of the SEALs did the same, until a full line of soldiers stood saluting the woman who had saved them all. Hayes lowered his hand first. "I don't usually admit when I'm wrong," he said quietly, "but I've never been more glad to be wrong in my life." Elena's mouth curved just slightly, not quite a smile, but close enough. "You weren't wrong, Captain," she said. "You just didn't know me yet." Dalton stepped forward, helmet under his arm, his voice rough. "You got any idea what that looked like from down there?" Elena shrugged faintly. "Loud?" Laughter broke through the exhaustion. Even the captain smiled. Reeves stepped closer, still in disbelief. "Ma'am, that was the closest thing to watching an angel fly I've ever seen." Elena shook her head gently. "No angels out here, Lieutenant. Just people who do what they have to." She glanced back at the hog, its paint burned and chipped, its engines ticking as they cooled. The morning light caught the edges of the aircraft, turning them to gold. Hayes followed her gaze. "That plane's more than steel now," he said. "It's history." Elena nodded slowly. "No," she said. "It's family." She turned and started toward the hangar, helmet tucked under her arm, boots striking the ground in slow, even rhythm. The SEALs watched in silence as she walked. No cheers, no applause, just the kind of respect that didn't need sound. At the hangar door, she paused, looking once more at the sky she'd reclaimed. "Valkyrie, signing off," she whispered. The sound of her words faded with the wind, but their weight stayed behind, in every man who watched her go. Captain Hayes exhaled, barely above a whisper. "She's one of us." If you felt that story, subscribe now and tell me where you're watching from, soldiers. Valkyrie's wings will fly again.